Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody. Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody.
Hello.
Oh, man. Do we have a show for you? If I could get the rights to The Boys Are Back in Town and play that without getting in trouble with any type of copyright.
The Boys Are Back in Town.
There it is.
We're here.
The Boys Are Back in
We're
Town.
all here.
And we can't bring the awesome guitar in, but ladies and gentlemen, you may notice that we have a one Brian Roush joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Back from his torn ACL, aka having a baby. Brian is joining us with the team. Brian, how you feeling?
I am sleep deprived and very tired, but I'm so happy. I'm just so happy to be here. So I'm filled with joy, but my memory is shot because I haven't had a good night's sleep in like 30 plus days. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm a happy guy, and I'm a happy dad of 3 now. So I'm elated.
That's Brian. I am so happy for you, and your baby is adorable, and we are thrilled that you are able to come together.
That whole family is just so stinking cute.
They really are.
But y'all are very nice.
Absolutely.
And some people be having ugly babies. That's the thing.
That's
like you got to keep that in mind.
About.
Look, I think the secret is like they look like a cross between like a potato and an alien and an old man. Like as soon as they're born, and you're like, it's so cute, but like, what's going on? And it's like they're not like a person. Like they're a person, but like they're still getting stuff figured out.
That it's like you pulled an alien out of its spaceship. It's immediately upset and wondering what happened.
Midway,
and it's gonna let you know about it.
You got to be keeping in mind that thing has not seen sun for 9 months.
Yeah,
so when it comes
not
out,
even 9 months.
Not even ever. So when it comes out, it's like, what is that?
It's very upsetting. A very upsetting experience.
Yeah, there's a reason we don't remember it, ladies and gentlemen. And rounding us out from Boone, North Carolina, we have a one Marcus J. Destin. Marcus, how are you feeling, sir?
Listen, I'm feeling great. The trio is back together. We're at the season finale. I don't know how. We're talking Spider-Man. We've been talking Spider-Man on this podcast literally all year long.
It's true. We have.
And now we are here to discuss it. I was able to see it in a full theater, like a completely different experience. So, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling recharged. I'm glad that the gang is all back together.
We're here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here too. And you know what the best part is that we can end it on a high note. I mean, I don't think there's any other way we would want to go out from this. Period.
No. But just know today, I'm saying it off the rip. This is a spoiler field.
Let's get that out of the way right now.
Spoiler field. So if you're not into spoilers, you might want to leave, put a bookmark in this, and come back. If you join the Patreon, you can join us. Watch this firsthand.
Yeah.
But this is filled with spoilers.
This is rotten with spoilers.
If you are one of the not the 20 million people that saw this movie just this weekend, then go see it. Be part of the 20 million people that saw it, and then come back.
Come back because we don't want to ruin anything. Gentlemen, I was able to see this in a full theater as well. And it was exciting. It was exciting to be. I went to Sioux City to see it because I saw it with a buddy from the gym. But we got the reclining seats and the whole 9 yards. So it was the experience that was absolutely worth it. Yeah. Well, no, I didn't replace you because I want to talk about that here in a minute. I did not replace you.
You go to Boone and all of a sudden, was he black? Did you get another black friend to go with you to watch this?
No, this isn't New Girl where you just sub in a new black person. Come on,
you can't do that.
It was a white person, so it's fine.
I guess. Whatever.
Gentlemen, we are going to forego Catch That Quotable because at this point in time, Black History Year has been cemented in stone, and there's no undoing
congratulations.
I have
by
turned
the way,
1,000 episodes of this podcast.
We don't need to do it again. We don't need to do it again.
Look, I just want to make sure I make it clear. Congratulations, well deserved.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
See,
we thought you was gonna be a hater, but
he's not.
You know what? We got butterscotch soda out of it, and for that I'm eternally grateful.
And the group chat has not changed the name since.
No,
and you can change the group chat.
Right. I just left it as is. Good experience.
Black History Year group. Black History Year group.
Yeah, actually, it's time.
Yeah, with one black person.
But gentlemen, we're just gonna dive. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. 5 minutes into this podcast, and Brian has already done a spit take, which is fantastic.
I'm okay.
But we're just gonna dive right into the movie.
Let's do it.
And we're gonna break it all down because this sucker was 2 hours and 35 minutes of just pure awesomeness. And we got to get to it all, and we want to make sure that we get it all. Again, we're going to remind you one more time, this is a spoiler included podcast. So if you're wondering, should I listen or not? If you don't want a movie spoiled, please bookmark it, save it, download it, do whatever you need to do, watch the movie, and then come back, because I'm going to kick it on over to Marcus J. Destin to give us his barbershop summary for Spider-Man No Way Home. Okay. Marcus.
All right. What had happened was, for centuries, we have had stories told of a Spider-Man, of an Uncle Ben getting his ass capped in the alleyway, of Aunt May working 2 jobs. We have heard the story of this boy falling in love with the girl next door. You know what I mean? And not being able to save her, being one of the smartest kids, battling 2 identities, but now, centuries, decades later, we get the complete story of Spider-Man No Way Home. And what happens in this movie is you get this little kid, right? And this little kid, he started off by wanting to be an Avenger. And I'm pretty sure he was like 12. He was 12, wanted to be an Avenger. He had a mentor, one of the greatest superheroes on the planet, part of the big 3, and he sacrificed his life. All right. So then he got to deal with all that trauma. We don't know what happened to Uncle Ben, but now I'm starting to think Aunt May was Uncle Ben in this universe. Mm-hmm. So like, you have Aunt May, he's losing everybody around him. Okay. And where we left this spider hero off was he gets outed by Mysterio. Okay. Gets outed by Mysterio. Mysterio says, listen, Peter Parker is killing me with these drones. And not to mention, oh yeah, Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And he's like, what? And it was like, what? And it was like, what? And so like, everybody is like, you know what I mean? Everybody's in a big hubbub. You got J. Jonah Jameson is like goddamn Skip Bayless hating on Peter Parker the whole goddamn time, the whole goddamn movie. And so like, he's telling him he's a menace. He's public enemy #1 and blah, 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 going through all this stuff. Peter has to balance. He feels so shitty because he cannot have a regular life anymore. He has to leave his house. He's got his friends and all this stuff. They can't get into college. And all of a sudden he comes up with this idea of like, what if people just forgot that I was Spider-Man? So he go talk to the big homie, the magician himself, you know what I mean? The big dub wizard, Dr. Strange. So he walks in the house and it turns out Dr. Strange lost his damn job. Surprising. I was super surprised that he lost his job.
That's a good way to put it.
And they finally explain why Wong ass is hopping universe to universe, world to world, city to city, because now Wong is now the Sorcerer Supreme. So then they go and they says like, you know what? I want everybody to forget that I was Spider-Man. And he's like, you sure you want to do that? I mean, I got a little spell for you. He was like, yeah, I want to do that. So then they cast a spell and he was like, all right, man, here it goes, it's about to happen. And Peter's like, well, you know, I don't really want everybody to forget. Can I keep like 5 people in my top 5? Y'all remember that like on MySpace? So like Peter had his top 5.
Or AT&T.
Or AT&T, the little top 5 social ring.
Yeah.
So then Peter goes, makes the wish, and he keeps messing up the wish. As he messes up the wish, everybody who knows he's Peter Parker, who knows Spider-Man is Peter Parker, is crossing over into is crossing from the multiverse into this dimension. So from there, we get the big bads. We get Dr. Octopus, we get Sandman, we get Green Goblin, we get Electro, and we get the Lizard. All right. So all these people, Peter is now in charge of catching all these people so that Doctor Strange can send them back. And when he sends them back, all of them are going to be mid-death. Peter's like, man, I ain't doing that. So Peter wants to cure everybody. He's like, I'm going to cure him, not going to kill him. I'm going to cure him, not going to kill him. He tries to cure him, and all of a sudden, Green Goblin snaps, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna teach your ass a lesson about that." Suplexes his ass through 3 feet of apartment.
Oh my gosh.
And it was wild as hell. And so he goes, and then Peter goes through this whole movie dealing with trauma, dealing with loss, because we're gonna get into the specifics of what happens. And then he finds out what kind of Spider-Man he is. So that's really what the whole premise of this movie is. If I go into any more, it kind of takes away from the rest of the pod, and it's 2 hours worth of a movie, and I just can't do it, and my mouth is dry.
No, that's fine. I think that is a fine barbershop summary of what to expect from this movie. So, which is no, that's fine. I think it gives us enough of an outline so that way we have stuff to talk about in the rest of the episode. Otherwise, this would be a 30-minute episode. Quick on numbers, it's really fast, because it's important. This movie has generated and crushed and is the third highest ranked opening of the entire, basically, of all time. It had $260 million in just the USA box office, and it made $600.8 million globally. So this movie absolutely crushed it at the box office, which is great. You know, you obviously want them to do well, but this was awesome.
So did that break the pandemic record? Like, what is
it? It shattered the pandemic record.
Oh my gosh! I mean, globally, this has almost made $1 billion just in the weekend, which is I can't wrap my head around that. That's Endgame numbers.
Yeah, that's Endgame numbers, and that's after Endgame's total run, I think.
I'd have to look it up. It's a lot of money.
It's a ton of money. It's a lot of money.
I can't.
What I wouldn't give to be
left money.
I would love to be Tom Holland's just left arm right now. That's it. I don't want to be him. I just want to be his left arm. Just imagine the life that you are living right now. Like the stresses too, but the life that you have. Jesus.
Well, and I kind of want to get to that in a minute too, because I think that there's something interesting that I heard. Again, we'll have to see whether or not there's any truth to it, but I heard something interesting with that as well. Gentlemen, where do we start with this? Should we just start at the beginning and kind of run our way straight through it?
I want to start with our experiences. So I'm in Boone, and I'll kind of set it up, and everybody else can follow. Kind of follow the lead. So I'm in Boone, and I saw it Thursday night at 7:30 p.m., which was opening night.
Nice.
And I saw it in a theater that I've never been in before, and it's kind of a smaller town a bigger town than Vermilion, but a little bit, still a small town.
Right.
I went with just my siblings, so I paid. Give you the full scope. $50. Bought tickets ahead of time. It was $50 for tickets for me and my 3 siblings, so 4 of us all together, and snacks and stuff was also. It was like $100 date for.
That's fun though.
Dates and stuff with 30. Yeah, it was pretty good.
It warmed my heart to see you with your siblings at that movie.
Yeah, that was.
What a moment.
It was when I say it was perfect. It was, and they're old enough now to understand different concepts and stuff like that now. So it's not like taking little kids to a thing. It's like, okay, I'm taking my siblings who understand what's going on. So
for sure,
we go in, and literally when I walk into the theater to the auditorium. We walk in, and you know how Verm, we can kind of just see, you want to look around to see where you want to sit.
Yeah.
This one was, I need to look around to see where I can sit.
So not where I want to.
The entire theater was packed. There is no skipping rows. There is no skipping seats. We had to literally sit in the front. We had to sit in the front row of the theater.
Man.
And that was where it was pretty much. And then once people started filing in, there may have been 3 open seats between us and the other side of the row.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. It was a completely different experience because when things happen in the movie that people are supposed to cheer for in Vermilion, it doesn't happen because it's like you're just watching a movie, everybody's kind of quiet. Here, when things happen, as soon as the lights went out, people were cheering. People were like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy!"
Wow,
yeah,
that's
going
really cool.
Nuts. So that was my personal experience going into the movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Right on.
Cool. Brian.
Yeah, so we had to align some stars for childcare. So the moment we got it, we did a Saturday afternoon showing, so there wasn't as many people there because we're still a little concerned about COVID. But at the same time, Maggie and I are both boosted. We have a mask mandate here in Illinois too, so it's this is the most we can do. Yeah. So went to our usual theater. We have the same theater we go to. We've been in Theater 7 at AMC Ranters for ever. But amazing. I mean, they have so many screens for Spider-Man. We were in Theater 5. It was fine. It was smaller, but it was fine. But we haven't. It's so strange after not having a year and a half of audience reactions because all the other Marvel movies Shang-Chi, Eternals, Black Widow, we were 2 of 10 in a theater. This was the only movie we've seen in the past 18 months where it was there's people here. We have to okay, like negotiate other people because everybody's seeing this movie.
Yes.
So the one thing that just like stuck out to me, which might like for some people they're like, well, yeah, but like I have basically we've just watched everything at home, and all of the audience reactions have been me and my wife looking at each other, being like, "What?" That's it. Yeah. So to be in a theater and like have spoilers, have Matt Murdock be like, I think most of your legal troubles are over. And just there's this energy from the audience. It's like that's people whispering, by the way.
No,
that's good. People like looking at each other, and like I felt like there was this kid next to me, and he's like, "Who is that?" And I'm just like, "Oh, kid!" Like, "Oh man!" Like you've been, "Oh man!" So it was
that is such a Brian reaction, because I would tell the kid, "If you don't shut the fuck up."
I mean, everybody in the theater was like about it, and I haven't had an experience like that in a while, and that part felt good. And I don't know, I think that's part of the other reason I enjoyed this movie so much.
That's awesome.
Love that.
So I went on Friday.
Tell us about your treacherous backstabbing adventures.
My treacherous backstabbing adventures basically started with me picking up a buddy and heading to the theater in Sioux City at 8:30 for the 8:30 showing.
Ooh.
Now when we got there, I was a smidgen concerned because I saw a lot of kids between like 8 and like 6. And I'm like, oh man, is this gonna be a problem? Like knee-jerk reaction. Like, oh man,
is this gonna be a problem?
Is this gonna be a problem? Like
Doug Wagner, these kids are gonna be a problem.
These kids are gonna be a problem.
I will report you. Turn into a Karen real quick.
But then the other thing that kind of happened is like I had to like scale back my excitement. Remember, I'm used to seeing this with my man Marcus J like in the window next to me, and our excitement like feeds off one another. Like if we have a question, we'll like lean over and be like, "Oh my god, did you see that? I wonder what that means."
Yeah.
And when Matt Murdock showed up, I audibly, probably the loudest person in the room, went like, "Oh fuck yeah!" Like when everybody was there, like in a room full of children, and my buddy was like, yeah, they said he was in it," and I'm like,
"Oh,
like and I was like, I'm still excited, and
let me be swept in the moment."
And then when he grabs that brick, and Spider-Man goes like, "How did you do that?" And he goes, "I'm a good lawyer." Like I was like, "Oh shit!" like loud in the theater. And again, I immediately had to like scale back my level of excitement. But you all are right. Like you all are correct in the like when things happened in this movie and certain reveals came and certain things happened, and to hear the audience like cheer, like normally that would bug me. I don't know what it is. It's always kind of like I've always been like, they can't hear you. Like there's always I'm always that guy, like quietly to myself. Yeah. But there was something about this one. I mean, I think you could just tell that people were, because I think it's the mix of what this movie like appeals to. There are people who grew up with the original Toby. There are people who got into it because of the Andrew movies. Like they got paid off with this. And there was a lot of this top to bottom where there was a lot of reward. And I feel like there was a huge level of fan support and expectation. And I think this movie met all of those expectations across the board. So the excitement to me, it was like, this is all fine. This is all fine. So that's kind of been my experience.
That's good. Here's where I'm gonna start. This rumors. We've talked rumors on this podcast.
Yeah, we really have.
Man.
All year long. We talked
Andrew Garfield Grubhub rumors.
Like, it was so
I remember that episode. Yeah,
it was like we didn't know what was happening. Andrew Garfield was an asshole, or you know what I mean? Like it was so many. Andrew Garfield just started blatantly lying to people and was like, "I am not in this movie."
I hope even after this movie's been released, they're like, "Oh, and your performance in No Way Home." He's like, "I'm not in that movie." I just want him to keep going.
I want him to take it there.
I actually want to commend him for lying, because I feel like Marvel is kind of at that point. Like actors are not obligated to tell us the truth. Like, and we hold them like they were priests in a chapel to be like, are you in No Way Home? And he's like,
and if you lie,
no. Like, and it was like, if you lie, we're on your ass. You know, you saw what happened to Jesus. Like, sir, I am an actress person. So like, what do you want me to do? Like, I don't know what you want me to do. So here's where I'm gonna start. were the reveals in this movie? What were your top reveals in this movie? Because it may range, and I feel like we all might say the same thing. But what were your top reveals in this movie? And was it worth, like, was it well planned and was it worth it?
Top reveals. Good question.
Great question.
Because there's a lot. There's a lot in here.
I think for me, like, and maybe this is where I was at, I think the Matt Murdock reveal was probably one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. Not that the other two reveals like weren't good, but there was a level of energy and excitement around with that one. And I think it's maybe because like I've been staying up to date with what's happening in Hawkeye. Yep, like there's something else there, and the promise of more Daredevil for me. I just really liked that show. I really like that character. And so there's a lot of this like top to bottom that like that revealed to me was probably one of my top ones. I would say just in general, like, again, Willem Dafoe, like, I'm going to count his energy as a true Green Goblin. Like,
yes.
As another reveal, that is absolutely up there. That motherfucker is a national treasure. Like, he needs to be protected, everybody. Like, I don't want anything to happen to him. Because he's just so awesome. Like, and again, he brought it and went there, and like he was just as believable as when he did it back in the day. So
yeah.
The Andrew Tobey reveal. I don't want to say that it wasn't a big deal. It was. But I think in my mind, I almost kind of expected that to come, and I think that is with the level of hype that was associated with them potentially being in it. I thought the way they did it was really, really cool. That was really cool the way they did that.
Yeah. Perfectly understated. Yeah.
It was, when I say, so I was talking to my buddy about the Andrew and Tobey reveal. And I was telling him how I was at a certain point of the movie where I was kind of more swept up in the story they were telling about Tom Holland Spider-Man that I almost forgot that there was this possibility that Andrew and Tobey were in this movie. Like, I wasn't watching it to get to the Andrew and Tobey part. I was watching it for the sake of the story. I was really invested because they really took their time to get there. I also agree with I absolutely agree with the Matt Murdock reveal. I mean, the guy was on the screen for what, 3 minutes?
Yeah.
And said a couple words about he said the hot words, lawyer, really good lawyer. He's wearing the glasses, has the cane. For me, I was in complete, I was in bliss. I was there. I was there. I was there. I can't even lie to you. I thought that was amazing. And for it to be so quickly, it was quickly introduced. They didn't wait. They weren't trying to like, they were like, nope, here he is. This is a part of the movie. All right, now we're gonna move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yep, I'd agree with that assessment. And you're absolutely right about the Tobey Andrew reveals. They were so subtle, and I was so ingrained in the moment with watching them, like, and watching the movie, that it was like, oh yeah, that happens. Like, it wasn't one of those, and the entire audience cheered. So I was like, I basically was like, yep, this makes sense, and I was really excited about it. But again, kind of to that point of like, oh shit, yeah, I guess they'd be here too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, with where the story was at and everything, it was like, they do know who Peter is, so that would be part of it,
right?
So that's kind of where mine shake out. Brian?
Yeah,
I think for me, I'm kind of cheating with this answer, but the reveal that like time has passed for these other two Spider-Men, and like hearing where they were at, Tobey Maguire and both Andrew Garfield, and I think the gut punch one for me was Andrew Garfield being like, yeah, so Gwen died, and I hate the world. Like, I hate the world. And I was like, oh, like that makes me so sad. Like, and I didn't expect it to make me sad. And like, this is a movie from 2014 that never even finished the trilogy, that it has a weird place in Spider-Man history, but this movie did a thing where it tugged on my nostalgia, like, no, you dropped this, Brian, but he kept going, and he's in a bad place, and it's like,
Dang. And you almost feel bad about it. You're like, oh my, I did forget about you.
It's almost like, like folks like us that are super invested, like, did I cause this? Like, is this
right?
my fault because we didn't get a third Amazing Spider-Man movie? Of course it isn't, but they made me feel like
right, yeah.
So it was that reveal that like, oh no, like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, like he's in it, like he's not in a good place.
And even those smaller moments though, like when Doc Ock is talking to Toby and he's like, "Oh, you look so good. Oh, Parker, like you look so good." And somebody asked him, "How's Mary Jane?" And he was more like, "We're figuring things out. Like we're working on it. We're figuring things out." That's realistic Spider-Man answers because it was what this Tom Holland, we'll call him Peter One. So like Peter One needed to see these things to see what a rough Spider-Man who's been through some shit really looks like, because if you really look back at it, Peter One is in high school.
I mean, I think so. If we're just going to start talking about stuff, I think thing this movie does that is masterful, that it had no right to be as good as it was. It somehow condensed all of the Spider-Man lore of the past 20 years and it made it part of like a trilogy origin story, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
And puts it and compresses it in a way where the Tom Holland Spider-Man is like, oh, like I've been at the high highs, I have seen the reflections of myself, and now I end this movie like staring into my future, completely uncertain, with all of the movies that we've seen as like his foundation, which is like, that's bonkers. That's absolutely bonkers that the movie works on 3 different layers to get to that point. Yeah. And I'm still in awe that this movie could do that, because it's like 3 layers of like, hey, have you seen these 2000s movies? Okay, well, stick with me. Have you seen these 2010s movies? Like, I don't know how you do that, and the layers work even if you've never seen the Raimi movies or the Garfield movies. You know Willem Dafoe is a bad dude. Like, and that's incredible to me.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I appreciate that, Brian, is it like, to your point, it boiled this down into like a liquor that it just kind of gave you sips of throughout the whole movie.
Yes.
Like it gave you a shot here, a shot there, and it was enough to keep you going throughout all of it, where you were like, holy shit. I remember kind of like when I was driving back, I was like, you son of a bitch, you pulled it off. Like this wasn't overcomplicated. There wasn't too many things going on. Every story, again, because you have to kind of judge it as a sum of its parts, right? Like the Spider-Man 3 element of like a bunch of half-finished storylines, there's nothing in there that was unfinished. Like,
I mean, that's the question, right? That was what was on everybody's mind, right? It's like, well, I've seen Spider-Man 3, sir. Mr. Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal, ma'am, and that did not turn out well.
It did not.
But I mean, I like, there has to be no wasted dialogue, and there is, like, I don't know, in a weird way,
wasted time in this movie.
Like, this movie is 2.5 hours plus, and you're like, this is well paced, and I don't get why I feel like that.
Yeah, right. It did not feel like the 2 hours and 40 minutes, 2 hours, 30 minutes,
give or take.
It did not feel like that at all. So like, and we just talked about this Spider-Man 3 conundrum. Can you have more than 3 villains? Is the problem the template of having more than 3 villains, or is it really you really need to have good writers who understand the character that they're building?
Right. Yeah. And I think it's I think it's that again, and I think this is the other thing. This movie managed to pull in 2 or 3 villains from previous movies.
Yes.
Spider-Man, for all intents and purposes, like Tom Holland is not fighting a villain that is his problem.
No.
Right.
He is fighting, he's dealing with other people's problems that are a result of a choice he made. So you took villains from 20 years ago's worth of shit, and you put them into a movie, and it never felt like fan service. It never felt forced. I never felt icky about it. Like, and again, to kind of this point, like with the Avi Arad situation, put a pin in that. I don't want it. We'll talk about him later.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions. But remember, if you go back 2 episodes, the reason why Venom is in Spider-Man 3 is because Avi Arad says to Sam Raimi and the writer, and he goes, yeah, we got to do something for the fans in this one, so put Venom in it. and they're like, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense for him to be in there. Like,
right.
it feels like we're kind of just doing it. And he's like, you should put him in there. Like, I really want you to put him in there.
No, I wasn't really asking.
I wasn't really asking. I was more or less telling you put him in there. So for this to have such a like, everybody had a natural point where they fell into it, and you never felt like anybody was out of place. That's impressive, and I think that just goes to show like the fact that they went to these other folks who played these characters and said, like, we really want you to be in this, and we actually have a story for you. Like, and we're not just going to force you in there for fan service or what have you. So,
right.
That was really incredible.
Does this movie work with any other character? This is Spider-Man, and we know, Doug has been reading, One More Day, and we look at Secret Wars, and we look at all of the, we look at Civil War. Does this movie with the same kind of like premise or, foundation work for any other Marvel character? Would it have worked for any other Marvel character?
I mean, I'm happy to go ahead, Doug.
No, Brian, go ahead.
I'm happy to jump in because my unpopular opinion is I think this movie does work for another character. Like, I do believe that you could do this with Captain America. Do I think it would be as popular? Absolutely not. I think the reason that it works for so many people is that these movies are just so ubiquitous. I mean, like, everybody, like, there's a reason we didn't even get an origin story in the first because
people knew what it was.
We now live in a world where I have to say the first Spider-Man movie in a trilogy. We didn't get an origin story. It was just like, nah, he's Spider-Man, like, go with it. And like, and that's because everybody knows who Spider-Man is. So I do feel like there's a way to do this, but at the same time, I acknowledge though that Spider-Man is the most recognizable, and he is this endearing icon of hope, right? And I feel like I also, one of the other things I feel like that a lot of critics, so a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people on Twitter have been like, oh my gosh, like nobody else saw these other movies that are really good, but everybody and their mother went and saw Spider-Man. And yeah, that like, duh, like Spider-Man's the most, like one of the most recognizable fictional people. And Spider-Man connects with everybody. And you're telling me this is like a nostalgia bomb fueled by hope on a rocket ship to possibility? Of course, people are going to see this in our current day and age. Like,
God, I love having Brian back. that was just so positive.
It really was.
I mean, like, stuff around us is admittedly branded not great. And you're telling me there's a Spider-Man movie that has all the Spider-Man people that you have known and loved over the past 20 years, and it's gonna make you happy? People are gonna go see it.
Well, branded not great. It's hilarious.
And Brian, and one of the other things that I think is great about this is that, like, to your point, it's branded not great. And what's the one thing we want people to do? We want them to lay themselves down for the greater good of everybody else. Fuck off with the House of Gucci and other bullshit that's out there, because this is the story that people need to give them that level of like, see, it's not about you. Like,
and here's the other thing. I'll say, let me say this before. I have another question. About the template of this movie, because essentially we're possibly getting the same thing with Multiverse of Madness. You have it's rumored to get a whole bunch of cameos. We're rumored to get a whole bunch of appearances and new people and old people that were casted and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, Marvel is hitting this thing where obviously Marvel is hitting a reset button. They are saying this stuff can't exist. We acknowledge it, and we're going to move forward with our heroes. And the other thing I want to say before we comment on that, so don't forget your thought real quick. Everybody shut the fuck up, because it's like, yes, we understand that there are other movies to see. We understand that, but also it's a goddamn competition. This shit at the end of the day is a business. You think Marvel wasn't going to invest and pull people to a goddamn thing? Yes, there are other theaters. You know what people do in the music industry when Drake is about to drop or hasn't dropped? They move their shit around. So move around. Like, if you knew Spider-Man was dropping this weekend,
if you knew he was dropping he was dropping this weekend,
such a hot take.
Move your shit around.
The internet.
I'm gonna pick it up and help him out.
Well, yeah. Like, move your shit around. Basically, like, move your shit around. If you know Spider-Man is dropping, don't try to drop the same day as a Marvel film when you know that that's the thing right now.
I also feel like the other thing that I'll say here is I feel like there's room for both to exist. Like on this podcast, we have watched everything from Spider-Man No Way Home to very bad Nicolas Cage movies like The Wicker Man, and also serious drama, capital D drama films.
The Devil All the Time.
The Devil All the Time. Thank you. Like you can go back and listen to our previous episodes there. Promising Young Woman. Like,
oh my God,
we enjoy those movies too, but we also understand like there's space for both, and we don't need to make Spider-Man this like we don't need to
because it's more popular.
Again, for bad like sales. I just that doesn't work for me.
And again, I want to go back to this point of like, okay, I get it. There's other stuff out there to see, but people want to go back to the movie theater and have an experience like this. And if it's a cost benefit ratio, if it's a cost benefit analysis, if a ticket is $10.50 and I can know I'm going to see something that's going to be a home run with Spider-Man No Way Home,
that's it.
Or I can take a risk and I can go see House of Gucci. Which one? And I don't mean to pick on that one. I saw that one recently.
Did you see it?
I saw it when I was stranded in Chicago on Friday.
Right on,
I didn't
man.
have anything to do, and I saw it, and so I was like, I regretted seeing it, but that's a different podcast.
Well, I'm glad you saw it though, so you could get this take.
Right, but this is the point I'm taking is like it's $10.50. Which one's going to be a home run that I'm going to get the most bang for that $10.50? I'm going to go see Spider-Man.
I mean, also listen to your setup statement. I was stuck in Chicago.
So I saw House of Gucci.
So I saw a movie.
That's a good point.
That's a whole other podcast. That's some good January content for us.
Right.
Yeah. Look at us back. Already planning ahead.
Already planning. But that's where it's at. And then I think that there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to know your audience and you have to know where people are at. And again, both movies can exist in that same space. Both should be there, but it's just, if I'm gonna weigh it, it's a week before Christmas. Money's tight. I'm not gonna risk that $10. You know what I mean? Especially for one person, not to mention a family of 4.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to Marcus's point about, I push back on the idea that it's like a soft reboot of the universe. I feel like I wouldn't. It's the same vibe. Like it's the same vibe. I wouldn't use the word reboot because I guess I'm being pretentious. But like, I guess what I would say is like what I do feel like is happening is Marvel's like, well, they went all the way with us to flip an Endgame with Thanos, the purple time traveling alien. Like, okay, what else? What other weird stuff do we have? And what I feel like they're doing is they're just gonna keep throwing weirder and weirder stuff to figure out if everyone's going to keep going along. And I feel like WandaVision was part of that. They're like, oh, it's like a sitcom show from a different decade. And all 3 of us were like, oh, what? And then like, it's Multiverse of Madness where it's just going to be like, I don't know, what if, and bring in some of those what if characters. I don't know if you all have watched the What If animated series.
I have.
No, but you can spoil it.
Well, Doctor Strange, it appears in the trailer, and I'm saying this because Marvel has tricked us before, but in the trailer, it appears that Doctor Strange is talking to like a not good Doctor Strange or not our Doctor Strange. And I'm trying to figure out if that's the Doctor Strange from What If. Either way, I mean, either way, even if it is, I feel like you can trust your audience, right? Going back to everything that we've been talking about, trust your audience and talking about, okay, like you just have to trust us. It's all these different characters and they're going to be different iterations and you have to be cool with it. And we're going to have some fun. And I feel like the audience is ready. I mean, this is the 27th MCU film. Spider-Man No Way Home. Like that's bonkers. So I'm ready for something super weird. I think it's the reason WandaVision is stuck with me because it's like, this is really weird and I want more weird.
Right. And
this is really weird, but I want more weird.
And I'm fine with that. Again, I think to your point, Brian, I think it just goes to show that like you're going to have to expect the unexpected with these things going forward. Right. And that it's not going to be a clean cut, like, hero has a predicament, hero meets the villain, villain turns out to actually be a villain, he beats the villain, they all go home. There's going to be, I think what it did is it raised the stakes and made us look at like character studies of folks again, like, and looking at Peter as not just as a superhero, but like he's a kid and he had and the power of making decisions. I mean, look at somebody who's arguably 18 They're only really making decisions like brain wise based on what their world is. And this kid just put the world before himself. Like, that's an incredible thought-provoking moment for this character that I think is powerful. And that's fine. If we're going to get more of that going forward, that's fine, because that's the thing I had to keep reminding myself in this movie. Peter's a teenager. Like, I had to keep reminding myself that he's basically a kid. And I kept like going back to that. Like, I forget you're a kid.
Go ahead, Marcus.
Here's why. So here's one of the things that I liked a lot: the ending. Because if you really break this thing down and really break it down, not just like look at a movie, but sometimes we can just watch a movie and it's like, that's the consequence. And then I walk out the movie and forget and don't really think about it, which you're not obligated to continue to think about it after the movie's over, but really think about it. Peter lost Aunt May. She died. He watched her die. That's step one. Okay. Peter was in love and had his best friend, and they forgot about him. Peter watched this Green Goblin terrorize and the Green Goblin, once again, that was not his problem, come in and wreak all types of hell up and down New York. He's got J. Jonah Jameson on his ass. Once again, he's 18. He's in high school. And so at the end of this movie, he makes a request for everybody to forget who Peter Parker is. When you make that wish and your aunt is dead and there was no other family member introduced, who is Peter left with at the end of the day?
Nobody.
So this guy walks into his apartment with the hint at the GD high school thing, because Peter doesn't exist.
Right.
Peter has to go face his girlfriend, who's looking at him like, okay, you're a complete stranger who's still wearing the necklace that he gave. And his best friend is over there. And Peter has to figure this shit. There is no more Iron Boy. For everybody that was like, well, this is more Iron Boy and not really Spider-Man. Marvel said, shut the hell up. Marvel said, we're going to give it to you if you just wait and give us a goddamn chance.
Well,
right. Yeah, great point.
And to boost that, Marcus, I know one of the critiques from some folks were like, well, it's kind of weird that like Spider-Man, who's this working class type hero, suddenly gets just like all the help in the world from Tony Stark in both like No Way Home, No Way Home, both in Homecoming and Far From Home, which I understood, but I also like, I enjoyed seeing it because I have seen Peter Parker be poor for 5 movies, and it was okay for me to be like, okay, this is new and different. Like, it's
also,
nice
I have
to
a question
this.
as to how poor Toby was in his movie, but you keep going.
I mean, Toby was pretty poor.
He had 3 televisions.
I mean, but he rent. Are you aware of the rent being due?
Rent.
Which I like. Maybe it was just an Easter egg for me at the end of No Way Home, but he was like, rent's due on the 1st of the month, and I'm like, oh man, like I bet it's that same guy. I bet it's that same dude. That dude is just constant in the multiverse. He needs rent. He's the 1st of every month.
He has no variant. He just exists.
It's just him. Collecting rent, being a slumlord in universe.
He's gonna show up in Loki. But my point being though is like I loved seeing that perspective, and then getting to this point where it's like, no, like all of these experiences make this even more painful. Which again, why I love this movie, and I feel like this is a good point for me to say. I feel like the best Marvel films, and they've probably figured this out. They've done it 27 times, but the ones that change the status quo for the universe, which I get can be complicated for all of the other characters, all of the other franchises, but I feel like the best movies that we talk about when it comes to the MCU are the ones that just change the status quo. I think you look at Winter Soldier, they get rid of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, what?
S.H.I.E.L.D. is done.
You talk about Thor Ragnarok, Asgard is gone. We're here at No Way Home. Nobody knows who Peter Parker is. I mean, Infinity War and Endgame to a certain extent. They kill Tony Stark. They kill Black Widow. I mean, Gamora to a certain extent. And I feel like those are the types of movies that really like resonate with people. And it's like, man, like this is big swings of the movie. And I hope this is the direction they keep going. Cause even WandaVision to a certain extent was like, is Wanda a hero? We don't know. Bye. And I feel like that, I hope that's the direction they keep going. Cause it was super engaging and it moves away from this format this Iron Man format is what I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
none of those movies necessarily changed the status quo of Iron Man. They were good. No, they didn't.
I mean, he had to sacrifice himself at the very end, and even in that regard, was it really him changing the universe, or was it the state of the stones changing the universe?
Right. And you and the other thing to remember is Peter remembers all of this shit, and he's the only one that has memories of all of this. And that was one of my questions was, how does this spell work? Because is it people know who Spider-Man is, they just don't know that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, but they realize that Spider-Man is still the number one hero. He did all this and he saved us. They just don't know that it's Peter Parker. Like, how does that work?
That's how I interpreted it. I feel like for hardcore nerds like us, this is like a big question, because I asked this on Twitter and people were like, no, like this isn't like, no, like they know Spider-Man exists, but Peter Parker doesn't. And I was like, I know, but maybe not. Like, I don't understand, but I'm just kind of going with it, because what the spirit of the spell feels like is that nobody knows who Peter Parker is, the person. Spider-Man is a thing unto itself, but no one would think it's Peter Parker, and it's everywhere, I think.
I think the spell has to work that way. I think the spell has to work that way. Right. But I think it has to work that way for the plot to make sense, and not to create a hole later. Because the point of the movie is Doctor Strange makes this point at the beginning. He's like, you're trying to, the problem is not the spell. The problem is you trying to have your cake and eat it too. The problem is you trying to live this double life. And essentially by saying that, what he's not saying is one of those two things has to go. Like, either you can't be Spider-Man or you can't be Peter Parker. Like, it's the absence of the statement. So that spell being like, well, let's have them forget that Peter Parker exists, is saying basically Peter going, I've made a choice that Spider-Man's more important than myself.
So now Peter Parker
has to work that way.
So now Peter is the only one with a secret identity in the MCU now. Because everybody else is known for who they are, especially if we're looking. Kate Bishop is running around with a bow and arrow at
Hawkeye, the moment. By the way, spoilers up to Hawkeye episode 5. The new this last episode is coming out the day this podcast is released. But like, I mean, that show has made it very clear that the entire world knows the entire Avengers roster, basically.
Yes.
Full names on the golden plaque.
There
right
are
outside of New York.
Natasha Romanoff is an icon.
A spy, and her full name was on a goddamn plaque.
Yeah,
a whole spy. Like, goddamn, like y'all just ixnayed that whole part.
Shield has just they don't exist. So
don't exist.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I also love Peter's face when they were like, call Nick Fury. He was like, call Nick Fury. He was like, Nick Fury's been off Earth for a year now. And Peter was like, what the fuck? I just saw that a month ago.
That line of dialogue just blossomed a ton of thoughts too in my head of like, so somebody knows. Like, it kind of feels like when your kid goes out at night. Well, none of us have a kid that goes out at night, but I have to imagine it's the same feeling as like a parent.
Little do you know, Harrison has a side hustle.
I mean, like, when's Harrison getting home? But like it's the idea of the parent being like, where's my kid? Like, where are they? And it kind of felt like, oh no, they're at Jeremy's house. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Like, okay, somebody knows where he is. Yeah. He's safe. Thank goodness. Like, because at the end of Far From Home, I was like, does anybody know what this guy is up to? Like, is this guy gonna like be dead when we see him next? Like, what is up with Nick Fury?
I mean, he looks awful. Like, he's got like his beard is scraggly, his eyes all dead. It's he's all got
old man blue dead eyes.
He looks like like an old dog that they're like, he could go at any minute. Like, that's what he looks like.
Well, Samuel Jackson's gonna cuss you out.
That's fine. If he shows up to this podcast, that's fine.
Sam Jackson, we'd love to have you on the podcast.
We'd love to have you on the pod. I'd love to have you cuss me out for looking old. I think I have another question, and I want to ask about the juxtaposition of Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I kind of was stuck on this, and it's an interesting point, and I'm not sure if it's going anywhere, but maybe it's something I missed.
Okay.
So through our last interaction with Doctor Strange is Endgame. We didn't interact with him before then. The last interaction that we had is Infinity War as a full-fledged character, where he looks at Tony and he says, there's only one way for you to fix this. The interest of the universe is far more important than you. And he basically understands Like, and even Tony gives Doctor Strange that look in Endgame of like, is this it? And he's like, I can't tell you, because if it is, it's gonna ruin it. Like, and he basically says the universe is more important. Did anybody else find it weird then that Doctor Strange is standing on top of the Statue of Liberty, and Peter says, well, I'll just have everybody forget that Peter exists, and Doctor Strange's first reaction is, you can't do that.
Why?
Because if Doctor Strange is the Doctor Strange, if it's the same Doctor, and I'm not trying to suggest that it's Mephisto, so everybody let me just stop you right there. Shut the fuck up. It's not the person. I'm not trying to say it's anybody else. I'm just asking this question. If they are the same character with the same motives and the same interests and the same understanding of how the universe kind of works, and that the implications for giant cracks in the sky, I feel like that character's reaction would be, are you sure? Like, they aren't
the same character.
Okay.
Because
what did I miss then?
He lost his job. He's no longer the Sorcerer Supreme. He's just a guy, I feel like, just fixing shit. When you're the Sorcerer Supreme and have the Time Stone, and that title was given to you, I feel like there's maybe a different. Now, he should be making the same decisions across the board as a hero, but to me, I was like, maybe it's because he's not. Because when we look at Multiverse of Madness, obviously somebody is telling him, bro, you fucked up. You did this thing and you fucked up. And I think that because he didn't have that responsibility, your question is going to get answered in Multiverse of Madness.
Okay. And again, I'm not trying to say it's a bad movie, or I'm not trying to like.
No. I think
the movie's
that's a great
terrible
question.
because it's not the same thing.
That's a great question.
I found it really interesting, that choice of like, come on, man, like this is bigger than you. Like, just let him go with it.
So,
like it's his Tony Stark moment, kind of.
My hot take here is that Peter Parker is far more likable than Tony Stark. I think
that helps.
Okay.
Like,
no, that's
everything
fair.
that Marcus said, like I think there's some truth to that. Like, I think there's some layers there that you can explore. I also feel like, I mean, it's even in some of the dialogue it's a little subtle, but like Doctor Strange is like, it's doing the same thing Tony did, and whether it's for a script reason or if they're really trying to like make this connection before we don't know what happens to Spider-Man, but like Doctor Strange is like, he's legit trying to help this kid who he fought like the end of the world with, and he like, I think he cares about him, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, in a mentor type role. And I feel like that moment was like, Peter, man, like, you're a kid. Are you sure you want to do this? Like, this is kind of a big decision. And I feel like that does fit because Iron Man and Doctor Strange they had a very good professional relationship. I don't think they'd grab a beer together.
That's true.
But at the same time, I also feel like there's space there for like Doctor Strange. I'm not Sorcerer Supreme. I'm trying to fix this. I'm not really sure. Like, he wasn't sure even about the spell.
Right.
And I feel like there's a little bit of doubt, I would say. Maybe I'm looking too far into this, but maybe there's a little bit of doubt. There's a little bit of grief like kicking in. Like, I mean, if you're Doctor Strange, this is now the second person that you have to look in the eye and be like, well, something awful has to happen to you because of magic. Good luck, person. And the first one died. Tony died, and Peter just lost his entire life. So I'm like, this is the reason I'm just so hyped for Multiverse of Madness, of like Doctor Strange kind of being held accountable for like some of the stuff that he's done, which I'm just so jazzed about.
To be at some point in time, right?
Him and the Scarlet Witch.
I mean, to a certain extent, right? Like, I don't need to like time variance authority them, but like at the same time, I'm excited for them to explore, like, we kind of have been nonchalant about messing with reality. We should probably talk about that at some point. And then instead it explodes the multiverse into a madness, if I were to say.
Upon reflection of like giving your answers, which were great answers to my question, by the way.
On the replay.
I think the other thing that I think adds to what you all are saying is I'm sort of like processing it now, is that I think this is one of the first movies where you see two members of the Avengers disagree with each other about what the best course of end result is. And that is more comic book true than anything else.
You mean without it leading to an all-out civil war?
Right. But like, yeah, right. But like, this happens all the time where like they'll be in a room and they'll be like, oh, we should go fight that guy. And they're like, I'll sneak in. And they're like, nah, sneaking in doesn't work. Like they do that kind of thing with one another in their conversations in comic books. So I think this is far more comic book true of like, no, like you don't need to do that. Like we'll figure it out. And that's what makes Peter then. That's why that moment then is so important, as he steps into his own of saying, even given a choice to do it a different way, he still says, no, this is the only way. And I think that's a little bit more of a definition. So appreciate your answers. Go ahead, Marcus.
I have a squabble with Dr. Strange now that we're on the topic.
We should have a squabble with him, by the way.
Because here's the thing. The kid is 18. And of course, heroes are going to make their own decisions and they're going to do whatever they want to. This kid is 18 walking through your door asking, hey, I need you to help me. And I know you can. And he says, oh, by the way, I do have this spell. I used it for Wong when, party got a little bit too wild. We did use this spell. Cool. That's also fine with me. At no point does he give Peter the instructions of, hey, you get to have 5 people. Name all the people that you want to remember your name before I start this spell. He just was like, you want everybody to forget? Okay, fuck it. I'll just erase it all. There was no type of like list of consequences.
It does put him into this like witch doctor role of like, oh, you want your feet to be bigger so you can jump higher? Oh, I can do that. It doesn't even give, like you said, no consequences, no like, hey, before I draw this shit up, anybody you need to know? Like, mom, like anybody like that? Like, maybe not your mom, but is there anybody else like that? So that's a very good point.
It was just, I don't know if that's a whole, but when Peter starts the spell, he says, well, I've started this thing over 6 times already. And I'm like, well, bro, this could have all been avoided if you would have just told me I could name all the people at once and and that would be good.
Yeah.
I was talking to my friend Brandon on Twitter. We went to undergrad together. Brandon. And he was like, I think it's weird that like before you start this like reality altering spell, you're not like going through a checklist. Like you don't have a wizard checklist of like, hey, you're not trying to bring back anybody from the dead. You're not trying to make anyone fall in love with you. You're not like those simple things.
It's the genie piece. Yep.
Right. Like the Robin Williams genie thing. And like that didn't happen. And I was like, that's a good point. On the same token, I absolutely believe as a character, Doctor Strange is like, hey, one of my old Endgame war buddies. What do you need? Oh, you want everyone to forget you? You got it, buddy. We'll grab a beer afterwards. Like, I absolutely believe MCU Doctor Strange would not think about consequences. This is the guy that fought Dormammu like 800 times. Like,
simply by using the one thing he was told not to use.
Yes. Thank you. Like, and some people are like, this is so out of character for Doctor Strange. I'm like, this man was like tripping through like reality holes like they were just doors to a house. This man has no respect for anything.
No, none whatsoever. And I think that's what's going to make Multiverse of Madness so like awesome, is because you heard you heard his like this sort of antagonist from the first Doctor Strange say the biggest threat to the multiverse is you. Like, like that's a powerful statement. I also have another question.
Okay.
Can we talk about Jamie Foxx for a minute? Like just for a minute,
please.
And I don't want to make this about him. And again, the movie is fantastic. The movie is fantastic, and I really like this. Jamie Foxx had no business being that fucking smooth in this movie.
Oh my gosh.
That guy I would have been like, okay, Electro, you go do you. That's fine. Like he was really smooth. And I'm wondering what the direction was there.
I think that Marvel went into the room and they said, how can we redeem Jamie Foxx from being blue? And what their simple response was, they was like, you were blue, you had a gap and a hangover. How can we redeem you? And Marvel and Kevin Feige was like, let's make them fuckable. And it was like, I mean, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, kind of. Or at least the conversation was, all right, Jamie, what can we do to bring you back? We want you. Obviously, you can see there's a real good part in there. We want you to be in this. What can we do to bring you back? And he went, let me be me. Let me just play Jamie.
Absolutely.
What if it's not Electro? What if he's fighting Jamie Foxx playing Jamie Foxx? What would you think of that?
Like bust out a piano in the middle of the movie. Like
we can call him Electro, right? Oh, call him whatever you want. Just let me play him. Let me play him as myself.
Yep.
All right, if that's what'll get you.
I seriously was not expecting him for his role to be like that in this movie. To him to be the leader, like the ringleader, like Electro is not known for that in the comic books. Electro is kind of a goof. He's kind of a laughable bad guy to an extent. And you had Jamie Foxx come in here, and everybody's making the jokes like, "Wow, you look." Even the Lizard was like, "Wow, you look completely different. You had a hangover,
you had a comb over, and a gap."
This guy had a full hairline, beautiful cocoa buttered skin, and was powerful as hell. Like, oh my god,
he looked strong. Yeah, I mean, and he was the biggest problem.
I mean, and I'm glad that y'all did Amazing Spider-Man 2 for the last episode, for the previous episode. And if you haven't checked it out, go listen to it, please, because. I mean, it was good for me to remember that he fell into
a bat of eels.
And the fact when he said, "I fell into a bat of eels," like everybody kind of looked at him. And I was like, "Yeah, that happened. That happened to this man."
And him and Flint Marko was like, "I fell into a thing of sand." Like, yeah, gotta watch where
you step. Everybody was like, "Gotta watch where you step." It was like,
the stupidest ways in which supervillains were created was their clumsiness, and they were like. Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? Like now, at the time, I was mad about it.
Well, and I think what's funny about Jamie Foxx is like, what I like now seeing the whole movie, and I was talking to Maggie about this, is like I feel like Willem Dafoe showed up with like this like 11 out of 10 energy of like people talk to him like, "Hey, Willem, like it's like this is like a fun celebration of Spider-Man. 2 weeks of shooting, you can phone it in," and he was like. Phone it in. Never. I'm Willem Dafoe. I'm the Green Goblin. I will set this movie ablaze and you will be burnt by it. Like, and everyone was like, "Oh, what?" Like, and then like maybe Jamie Foxx was like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna. No. I'm bringing my A game."
You know that there were PAs on that lot that were like, "Okay, go get Willem," and they're like, "He just sits in his trailer laughing. I don't want to talk to him again. He's freaking me out." And all they hear from outside that trailer is like, "Ha ha ha ha!"
Yep,
and they're like, "Oh no, I'll come back later. We could shoot it later."
I mean.
Like they're just terrified of the man.
But more to the point though, like no, Jamie Foxx, like it really felt like he understood like, no, I finally get to set the record straight of like this is how I want this character to be.
Yeah.
And it felt I felt vindicated for him because that is the Electro I've had in my imagination.
Yep.
The one that was an Amazing Spider-Man 2 just kind of felt like it was there just because they could.
That's Brian. That's exactly why.
And he had a Spider-Man kink.
Yeah.
Well, that I mean, yes.
He was done the way he was done in Amazing Spider-Man 2 because they were like, let's do the visual because we can.
Yeah.
And that's not Jamie Foxx's, like he has no control over that. Like to make this very, very clear. Like, so it kind of just felt like Jamie Foxx got to do it the way he wanted to do it. And I love that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That was one of the things about this movie that I loved. Was these three, you have like some powerhouse actresses. And everybody was able to share the screen with you. I thought it was going to be Alfred Molina, like the Alfred Molina show.
Yeah.
I agree.
And even though Willem Dafoe was there, I was not expecting him to turn his Green Goblin up times 1,000.
Oh my God, no!
Like because as much as I liked him in the first movie, it was like he also got to sit with Green Goblin all these years and be like, how would I have done this character different if I had the chance?
Yeah.
And this is exactly what they did. Was he was like, I'm gonna turn this bitch up. He's like, everybody wants me to be Joker. I'm gonna combine Joker with the Green Goblin, and I'm gonna show you some scary shit.
I mean, that moment where he looks at Peter when the moment with Aunt May, and he's like, we need to take care of your humanity problem. I was like, holy shit. Jesus. Like that was such.
When Peter was beating his ass in the hallway, and he looks and laughs at Peter's face.
Oh yeah.
I said, oh no. Nah.
Even the moment at the Statue of Liberty when he was like beating him, and he was just like, this is exactly what you should be doing. I thought that was incredible.
Also, there was Chris Schultens, friend of the podcast.
Chris,
shout out to Chris.
Made a question, asked a question, was like, do you think it was part of the plan that like that the Holland Spider-Man would just like go super hard and then they'd be distracted and then give him the antidote or whatever? And I'm like, no, I absolutely believe MCU Spider-Man was going to
kill him. Oh, he was going to kill his.
He was going to punch him to death.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's why you needed the other two.
Yeah.
Well, and this leads me to the other point of like, I feel like this movie did such a good job of giving everybody something to do. And it absolutely gave something for Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield to do, to be like, nah, man, like we've been there. Like it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Which was a great way to honor those previous movies in such a concise way and launch Holland or whatever Spider-Man is in the next iteration to new heights.
Yeah, absolutely.
They had amazing on-screen chemistry.
Oh
like Holland and Tobey together was like, when they did the back cracking scene, I was like, why did I like that so much? I just didn't understand why it made me smile like so much. Seeing him crack his back,
because that's a part of the character we've never seen. Like we just see him swinging and assume that your body's not going to feel that. Your lower half, your everything down there is going to be a fucking mess.
Here comes CrossFit Doug.
I mean,
fitness coach coming at you,
stretch
folks.
that shit out daily, or otherwise you're gonna cramp up. His back's a mess.
But I also like the idea that they brought up that we haven't worked in a team. The other two was like, we've never worked with a team before. They don't have a Ned in the chair. They don't have Andrew had Gwen, but for the most part, he was kind of just doing that. They were both doing it on their own, and I like that they weren't automatically in sync when they got there. And Tom Holland had to step up and say, like, yo, I've got some experience. You know what I mean, y'all don't know who the Avengers are at all, but I've got some experience.
The best band.
Who is that?
He was like, is that a band? Are you in a band? And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Great. This is great. But I love that. But I love that whole scene. Everything was just perfectly set up. And shout out to Zendaya and shout out to who plays Ned. I need to find his name.
Yeah, I got it pulled up here. I got you.
Yeah, that whole chemistry was really great. All of it just
Jacob Batalon is
shout out to Jacob.
Shout out to Jacob. I want to kind of move us. I don't want to move us away from the movie too quickly. But we've all kind of spent enough time telling us how much we like this. And
it was really good.
And it was really good. We should.
Did you see when you walked through the portal?
Everybody should go see it. My question for you all is, I want to talk about like the future. I want to talk about the moment after the spell, and I want to talk about like the future of the character. Because there was
appropriate
for the impact of the spell hit me for real when not in the coffee shop. It hit me when Happy showed up at the grave. That's when I went like, oh fuck, because at first I'm like, oh, it's Happy, and then I was like, oh, he's not gonna know who he is. Like, and I just kind of like knew that like that was there. But the way this movie ends is you see red and blue suit Spider-Man swinging through New York at Christmas time. Classic Spidey swinging through New York at Christmas time. My question for you all is, let's play the speculation game.
I love this game.
Welcome to the speculation part of the show. What's next? Like what again? And I think so there's some interesting news pieces floating out there. Tom, there's a quote recently that said that Tom wants to take a break. He wants to take a little bit
well deserved if he does.
You've earned it at this point. His contract, there's competing sources of information regarding his contract that I've kind of heard about. There's we signed him to 6 more movies, but there's also the like, no, we've said Spider-Man will be in 6 more movies. We didn't say which one. Like, and there's that piece of it. There's also some Easter egg things that could come up. Obviously, we haven't even gotten to the mid-credit scene.
Oh my gosh,
with Tom Hardy. So there's a lot of this. There's a lot of this that's kind of going on and kind of moving through this. So my question for you all, where do we go from here? What do you think is coming? And just kind of put yourselves in the production director, like studio chair for a second and pitch us what the next step is.
Cool. Got you. Here. I just want to say Marcus was right.
Well, I also was right, but you don't see me gloating about it.
I'm not you.
Okay.
So Here's where I think they go next. I think you go with a Amazing Spider-Man route or Spectacular Spider-Man route. It's going to be something like that. I think first of all, production-wise, we're done with the home series.
Yeah.
There's no more home in the title. So you need to do something else for this Spider-Man that exists. Now, I'm gonna start here. Don't ask Holland a single damn question about Spider-Man while he's doing Spider-Man shit. Like, because of course I'm gonna say, I want to take a break. I'm kind of tired. This whole fandom thing, I'm kind of burnt out. But if you give him a break, you know, he may come back ready to go. He's talked about being behind the camera, like for Spider-Man 4. Kevin Feige has already said that Spider-Man 4 is actively in the works and in development, like they're working on the next step. Sony says that Spider-Man has one more, is contractually obligated to one more appearance in the MCU, I do believe. And then
I'm trying to track that down, but that sounds right.
And so here's where I think they go next. You have this Peter who's figuring this shit out on his own. This is not the end. This is the beginning. This is where you start to see Peter struggle with the balance of things. This is the Peter we all know and love, but with more experience. Okay. I think you start to see, after he graduates or gets his GED or whatever the case may be, you're going to start seeing Peter go into the working world. You're going to start seeing Peter, maybe he doesn't go directly to college. Maybe Peter just kind of, you know, tries to figure shit out, takes a year off, still try to figure out the Spider-Man stuff. And I think you do Kraven. If I'm in production, Kraven is your next option, because you want to have somebody who can hunt down the greatest hero on the earth, all this other stuff like that. You know what I mean? And you need to build the relationships back with MJ, obviously, and Ned. I don't know what Ned is or who Ned is going to become. I don't know where that goes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's Hobgoblin. I don't know what that is, but Ned was just kind of awkwardly left there. He didn't even speak to Ned at the end of the movie. He just kind of was just like, okay, bye.
Ned was great in this, but because he's been great in all, but I think I'm remembering it because he was great in all three. And this one, I felt like we didn't see as much of him as we did in the previous ones. But continue.
How could you?
It's too much. Yep.
Here's where the route I would go. I think you start Spider-Man off in Spider-Man 4 of just him being successful solo dolo. He's in this classic suit, developing this new personality. He still worked with the Avengers because they know who Spider-Man is. They just don't know who Peter Parker is.
That's fair.
We see how Peter is doing without having anyone necessarily in his corner. Because you have to tell that story. There's no way that you can't with the complications from this spell. I think they're setting them up for Secret Wars.
I think you're probably right, but
I don't know how you get there from here. But I think that the end goal, because you've seen that you can have Andrew and Toby come back, and there was rumors that they want them to come back again. I think that they set Spider-Man up for Secret Wars.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at any online medium right now. Just to go back to what you just said, Marquez. People are happy to have Maguire and Garfield back.
Yeah.
And
would watch both.
I think it's really weird. I just have to say this. And as a Star Wars fan, I saw this happen with the prequels. I never thought I'd see it for another franchise, but people are like lionizing the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which is really weird whiplash. And Andrew Garfield is a great actor.
But those movies were not good.
But those movies were not good, not because, by the way, of the talent. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone did exactly what they needed to do, and they're the best parts of those movies. It was the production and direction of the story. Yeah. Go back to the other episode. Go back to the other past two episodes of Films in Black and White, and Doug and Marcus hit the nail on the head with them of what went wrong. And I just feel like
his name's Avi Arad, and that's what went. Well, that's exactly.
Well, maybe that's wrong. The next thing we can talk about. I guess for me, I feel like if Tom Holland's game, I think another trilogy, it makes sense fiscal wise, practicality wise, and story wise. I feel like having a Homecoming trilogy and then a trilogy where he's like branching out and becoming like his own person. I think those are two. That's amazing. We even have the possibility of doing that. I do. So it is heavily rumored that Spider-Man is slated to appear in one other MCU film. So I have no idea what that could be. I had no clue. Like, usually I love engaging in speculation theater, but I don't know what movie he makes sense in. It feels like it has to be a street level thing, but right now we know we have Guardians and Thor and Doctor Strange coming. Yes, there's a Shang-Chi sequel in the works. Wakanda Forever is happening, but I don't see.
It's Fantastic Four.
I mean, but he, like if it's Fantastic Four, I feel like that's the lowest hanging fruit. I feel like that makes the most sense. And and it's John Watts is directing it, and so there's already a relational connection there. So that would make sense to me and would reintroduce that. So that's where I'm thinking of it from, like the contract stuff.
Yeah.
I think for me, in my brain, I think what would be really cool is if you just pick up all those elements that we put down in No Way Home, talking about MJ, talking about Gwen, talking about Uncle Ben. Oh, Aunt May. I'll come back to that later. And maybe having these like early adult years, like get them past college. I feel like skip college. I know some people are like, it's time to do Hogwarts, and like let's do a Hogwarts model and just do 1 year of each of college. And I feel like I feel like it could be really cool to just get him past college. He knows Gwen, he knows MJ, and it's a new reality for him, and he knows some of these things right from the other universes, but he has to make sense of it in his own. I feel like it's a really good start platform to like how he makes his own reality with it. So I mean, whatever. You show the first trailer and Gwen Stacy shows up and everyone's just going to be like, I'm sorry, excuse me, sir. Like everyone's going to go wild for it. So that's kind of how I see it playing out. I have no idea what movie Spider-Man will pop up in. I'm looking at a list. I don't know where it fits, but I think Marcus is right. I think Fantastic Four down the road.
I think
makes the most sense.
I think it's because it's not on that list.
Yeah.
I think to be honest with you, I think more than likely what will happen is I think we are going to see, with the success of this, and I think with Marvel's trust of the partnership with Sony, I think what will more than likely happen is we will see Spider-Man in movies that Sony is running. We will see Tom show up, because I think what will more than likely happen is, I mean, that there's no way you can ignore that mid-credit Venom scene where that tiny little piece of symbiote is left behind when Tom Hardy is taken back to his universe. There's no way that we can ignore that. And so
if I may, really quick, I posted somewhere, I was like, this movie converged 6 villains, 3 heroes in it, and 4 heroes in it, and it pulled it off. People were like, well, I only counted 5 Spider-Man villains. And I was like, look, my headcanon is that Venom got there and was like, nah, I'm going to go to the bar in Mexico. Just never made it to New York to confront Peter Parker.
Right.
And that's how we got the symbiote.
I mean, and that's the last thing that they talk about. So I think what we're more than likely going to see is, I think we might actually see like a whole movie that's Spider-Man versus Venom, which will not,
or the team up.
Oh my god.
Or the team up. I don't think the team up is possible. Not possible. I don't think the team up is probable. Because what I think will more than likely happen is, like Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars, Spider-Man gets his black suit.
Right.
So I could see them doing moving in this direction of like, he gets, this is the progression that we get of like Venom makes his way to New York via the same way that Riot, I think, was the one in Venom. Riot makes his way halfway around the goddamn world and doesn't get stopped. And makes his way to San Francisco. I think we're going to see something similar with the way Venom makes his way to New York, or the little piece of Venom makes its way to New York. And I think bonds with Spider-Man, and we start this Venom trilogy. I think the next MCU film, or the next MCU property that we see Tom Holland Spider-Man in, is more than likely a Secret Wars, just because there's been a lot of hype around it lately. I mean, Samuel Jackson has come back. The woman who's playing Daenerys Targaryen, she's casted in a role. Is a Secret Invasion, which will lead into that. There's a lot of things happening with this, and I feel like that's where they headed. Fantastic Four still feels too far out, and I think with the way the money train, where the money is at, they're going to want to capitalize that on again, so they can maybe say, hey, Sony, you made a lot of money. We made a lot of money. Can we do this again? Like, and try to renegotiate. I think in 2 years we'll have a conversation about renegotiating.
That's why I'm so confident this is going to happen. Yeah. Like, Tom Holland can talk all day about, I don't want to keep doing this when I'm 30, but my man, you are... You got it all. Right. You're dating Zendaya. You have $1 billion movie coming down the chute. You are like the Spider-Man that people want to see. I think more likely than not, you're coming back.
Right. Right. And can we talk about how sweet their relationship seems? No. Like when that movie posted, I'm going to do whatever I want, and I'll mute you if I have to.
I don't want to hear this shit.
They seem really, like, genuine. Like, I want good things for them.
Look, every Spider-Man couple has ended up getting together for a relationship.
Amy Pascal said, don't do that shit. And it was like...
She's like the sorority mom, like, trying to be like, look,
I'm sure.
I've been here.
Yeah. Please don't do it. And they were like, yeah, no, I feel you, but, you know.
I'm going to do what I want. But they seem really nice. That's all I wanted to say.
Whatever.
Right.
Let's talk because I've alluded to this several times. Let's talk about Avi Arad just for a minute.
How do you want to set this up?
How do you want to set it up?
I don't give a shit. I'm just going right into it. This is
bad, motherfucker, huh?
This is how I live my life. This is where I was caught with him. So I'm sitting there in the post credits, and I've seen the Venom thing, and I was like, that's hilarious. This is awesome. We're going to get a Venom suit. We're going to get them to fight one another. Hell yeah. And there's this weird tribute, like right before the Doctor Strange bit, where they said, we couldn't have done this.
Yep.
We could not have done this without the vision and passion. And our biggest and most sincere thanks goes out to Avi Arad. And for those of you that don't know, go back 2 episodes and listen to us cover Spider-Man 3, because the majority of the problems, Avi Arad was a big producer at Sony when Spider-Man 3 happened. And essentially the gist is that Avi included Venom in there. He basically said, like, okay, big writer that we hired, we're not interested in your opinion. We're going to just do this for the fans anyway. And he kind of made a mess of things. Can anybody figure out why he was given that big thank you?
Maybe he's the connecting dot. That's the only thing I can think about is, like, when it comes to Toby, and maybe he's got the most experience when it comes with, he could be the Sony Connect. I'll just say that. Like, maybe he is the Sony Connect, and it's not, he's the thing that has the most experience with Spider-Man, and he was able to connect the dots and bring people back together and say, maybe we should just do this and see how it looks and bring it to the table and have this vision. Or maybe he just paid a whole lot of money for somebody to kiss his ass and put that tribute at the end.
Also possible. But I mean, and I remember that, like, when we got the 2014 like leak of information when Sony was hacked, I mean, they did have plans to do the Amazing Spider-Man versus Sam Raimi Spider-Man. So maybe he was involved in that. I mean, we did kind of say last week, Marcus, that my guess is there's going to be a lot of inspiration from all the plans that they had previously, like, because they had a Spider-Verse laid out and they just never capitalized on it. And they finally were able to do that.
I think it's, I don't know. I think it's really complicated. Like, like the narrative seems to be like that Avi Arad is responsible for some of the more not great decisions, if I'm going to stay on brand with that. He's responsible
all the fuck shit going on with Spider-Man before this.
Some of the bad decisions regarding some of these movies.
We're going to make a t-shirt for Brian that just is in big orange text that says, it's not great.
Not great. With a TM in the corner. Just not great.
Not great.
And and I feel like we don't know what the true story is. What it feels like to me, as a trained counselor and leadership expert, what it feels like.
Okay, break that shit down then, bro.
Is Kevin Feige and Avi Arad. They were making movies together. They were having a good time. He made some bad decisions. This isn't to say he's a bad person. I think he maybe made some bad decisions.
Because I do coke one time does not make me a bad person. It's just
and
somebody.
I think it reflected poorly on him, and maybe he didn't respond well to all the positive attention that Kevin Feige got. Because whether you like it or not, he's seen as like the navigator for all of these franchises, and he left. Like he left to just do characters that were outside of the Marvel scope. I forget how they phrase it, but like not doing MCU stuff is essentially what it is.
Yep.
And so what it feels like to me is just trying to smooth things over, just trying to be harmonious,
polishing up that turd just a little bit.
Like, I mean, who knows? Maybe we're gonna get an announcement that Avi Arad is coming back in some way or another for another film or something like that.
Could be Multiverse of Madness because Raimi is directing that, right?
Nope.
Right.
Don't like that.
So like, and he was involved with Into the Spider-Verse, and we know we're getting 2 more sequels to that.
That's true. That's fair.
So it could just be like, hey man, like I know things weren't great. Here we go. Biggest movie in the world. I plastered this giant thing saying how great you were. Can we move on and play nicely together?
Brian,
I could see it being something like that.
Brian, I know you want me to try again, and you want me to put myself out there. I just don't know if I'm ready to get hurt again. And I don't know with Avi if I'm ready to get hurt again.
You know the quickest way to warm up to a pool? Just jump the fuck in.
That's fair. That's a great point.
Here's the thing. Like, I'm waiting for like the New York Times definitive like expose or like something from Deadline or Hollywood Reporter.
That's true, yeah.
And I've never been able to find anything online that's credible of like what actually happened, which to me makes it sound like it's a lot more gray and murky than what we may think it is. Like these two guys it could be a classic thing of like what we have here on the podcast of like, no, I think it's Secret Wars, and me being like, I don't know, he might show up in Wakanda Forever. Like it could be something as simple as that, and it grew into something larger because money was involved, right?
That's true.
Or like reputation. I don't know. That's my read on it, but I'm sure there's a ton of stuff we don't know.
I think Marvel figured it out. I think Marvel figured some shit out, right? They realized we can make a ton of money together. Like,
exactly.
As much as people think that we're beefing or fighting over Spider-Man and characters and shit, Marvel did the thing that I wish most rappers and companies and like beefing it's good for clout, but also you can make a whole lot more money if Drake and Kanye go on tour together.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Well,
so and they just figured shit out. And those was years ago. Like it was years ago to make that mistake and you fuck up. And maybe people they behind the scenes were like, we're gonna have our moment in the sun again. Let's just all be patient.
Right. Like beef drives up like social media headlines and gets you buzz, but at some point in time reality has to set in. Like you have to do something with that buzz. And so I think that's a great point, and we will see what happens, and I will try to keep an open mind going forward. Gentlemen, anything else? I mean, there was a lot in there with Spider-Man No Way Home. Is there anything else that you all were just dying to discuss?
Listen, if I got a checklist, I feel like we talked about a lot, and some stuff we did more in depth than other things. Here's my checklist: love the end of the suit, love this movie, love the Toby and Andrew appearance, love the Matt Murdock appearance, and the just confirmation that he's back in the MCU. I love the tie-in. I love the story. I love the actors. This movie, I love the fact that you didn't base this whole movie in nostalgia. You based it off an actual story and then tied in the fact that, we got some people that you all would love that's really going to take this story to the next level. I appreciate that you gave everybody a conclusion to their story and allowed and is now making way for you to do something new. 100%. Every Peter didn't have an Uncle Ben. Every universe isn't going to have a Venom. And that's what they did with this movie was explain that. You know, all universes aren't the same. Some have a Gwen, some have an MJ, some have a Venom, some have just a symbiote at the bar that's going to get loose after it takes a shot at tequila.
And some MJs are named different.
And some MJs are different and they look different. And all villains, my villains may not be as rough as tough as Toby, and my villains may lead more like Mysterio and be more Disney-fied, and like that's okay. Like all universes is going to be different, but this is our Spider-Man, and this is how we're going to tell that story. So I just enjoyed the movie overall.
Yeah. I would entirely agree with that. I enjoyed the movie overall. Also, I'd like to take this time to tell everybody that I was right. I told these gentlemen that the only logical person to die was Aunt May. And
if we had a scoreboard, we would get a point.
Man, and you all were like, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, makes sense to me.
To me, it still does not make sense. I just did not see that coming.
I didn't see it coming. I understand why it happened. I teared up.
I did too.
I thought
yeah.
I thought it was going to be MJ.
Great responsibility. I'm glad that it wasn't MJ.
Me
because
too.
I think that's where you build your story. Aunt May wasn't really doing a lot up until now, and it was just really this running joke of her and Happy dating. You know, she's taking care of Peter. That's the guardian, and that's kind of what it felt like. I mean, this gave her sacrifice a lot more oomph to her character, and her being the Uncle Ben, which I thought was great. You didn't bring in the fact like, oh, your Uncle Ben used to always say. It just kind of seemed more like Uncle Ben was a deadbeat. But I'm going to tell you, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yep. Yeah. And then I loved the confirmation of like our Uncle Ben said that. And that even gave me confirmation for like Andrew's Spider-Man, because we never saw Uncle Ben in that one either. And it was really great to be like, oh no.
No, we did.
Yeah. It was I forgot his name. I forgot his name, but
West Wing.
Yes, the president from West Wing.
President of West Wing.
Oh,
why am I
you're right.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I'm looking it up.
No, that's okay though. It's been so many Uncle Bens. There's also the black Uncle Ben on the rice box.
That's true. That's a lot of Uncle Bens to keep track of.
That's also Peter's Uncle.
Also, follow me on TikTok. I have a great thing about those Uncle Bens. Gentlemen, I think the other thing I really liked about this is I think that there's like a lot of potential to do some like to really lean into like I think if you're gonna look at this, and this does track some similarities to One More Day. With the way it was ended. So I do think that you could do some really new villains that they've popped off and done with Brand New Day and some other things. So there's some cool ways and routes that they could go with this that would be really, really interesting. So I'm excited to see it. But overall, this movie's just really good. It didn't just do fan service with nostalgia, which I know has been said, but it is really important because I was worried about that when the rumors initially started flying of Andrew and Toby. I was like, I don't want that. I don't want them to just be in there to be in there. And now I want a poster with all three of them on my wall. Like, it was such a cool moment and such a huge payoff. And this movie's just really awesome. Just really, really awesome.
Martin Sheen was Uncle Ben.
Martin Sheen. You sneaky son of a bitch.
Martin Sheen, you're a treasure. One thing.
Come on the podcast, Martin. We'd love to talk to you.
One thing I do want to answer this question because I feel very passionately about it. Is that I feel like a critique of Marvel movies is the third act is just a mess of like CG fight scenes, which I think is legitimate. It doesn't bother me, but it is a legitimate critique. And I think one thing that made this movie stand out for me was that there was some CG fight scene. Yes, but it was like half of the finale. And the finale wasn't like, well, I'm gonna punch you so hard. No, I'm gonna punch you harder. No, I'm gonna punch you harder. Like that's what a lot of the finales end up being, which has its place. But I thoroughly enjoyed and was absolutely refreshed that Spider-Man was like, okay, we're not going to beat these villains up. We're going to like actually try to help them with the problems that they have presented to us, almost like in a clinical way. Yeah. And I found that so refreshing. Like not since Doctor Strange have I been so satisfied with the finale of it not just being the same cookie cutter thing, because it was just it was this spirit of like, nah, man, I want to help you. I'm not trying to kill you or like punch you really hard. I just want to like inject you with the antidote to this serum that clearly made you a goblin of madness. Like, let me help you, man. Right. And I just really enjoyed that. And I feel like it gets to the spirit of heroes, and heroes don't always have to punch their way out of stuff. And that really vibed with me. And I'm really proud that movie took that route. Was there some punching? There was some, but it was punctuated with like these MacGuffins as well as these really cherished like narrative moments between all the Spider-Mans that made you feel like you were coming home. And it's incredible.
And again, it was true to the character, right? Like we saw a character who we know from comics and a bunch of other source material that the reason why they put on the suit is to help people. And at the end of the day, it got down to that. Right. And it did that really, really, really
validated.
Well. Right.
Validated violence.
Right. Exactly. Basically.
Because if I go and I help Willem Dafoe and I say, all right, man, I'm gonna do this thing, man. I'm gonna try to help you out because you seem like you really need some help. And then you kill my Aunt May, you damn right I'm gonna beat the dog shit out of you. Like you goddamn right. And you're
gonna need a Tobey Maguire, is what I'm hearing.
You're gonna need a Toby in the corner to stop me from shoving this glider so far down your throat.
That's like, absolutely
that's like so validated violence, because I was like, damn, he did exhaust all options. Now he has to beat his ass. Like he's justified.
Got no other choice.
He's got no other choice.
Yeah, it's kind of how it works. I do believe it's called tit for tat for a reason. Gentlemen, so that will wrap us up. Why do they
call it tit for tat?
I don't know.
I'm not Googling.
If anybody wants, don't Google that.
I don't want that in my algorithm.
Nope, I don't need that in my algorithm either. Well, we made it an hour and 33 without the first Pornhub reference. So good job, everybody.
The boys are back.
We did it. We did it, everybody. Yeah. Gentlemen, anything that you all would like to plug this week?
TheLoveNerds.com. Hello. We've been away, but there is still content there. It's the holidays. You might be having people over, or maybe you won't. Maybe you canceled your plans. I don't know. This is coming out 2 days after we record. Either way, there's some really good recipes there. Again, the buffalo wings. I will point you there. They are delicious. It's a spicy treat during a cold time. What more do I need to say? Like, check out those buffalo wing recipes.
Spicy treat in a cold time.
That's amazing. Marcus?
Listen, the mantra. We're here, stronger than ever. Surprise, we're about to open up a new store through a new site, new services, new content. Oh yeah, it's going to be a whole thing. It's going to be beautiful. There's going to be all types of stuff there, loungewear, baby bibs. We're really upping the ante after the holiday season. So stay tuned. Okay. It's not gonna take long at all. We are really going to take things to a new height. So if you bought some stuff, that stuff will still be made and sent. And then we're going to transfer over to a new site where we'll be able to just offer everybody a little bit more. And it's going to be dope, but continue to follow the mantra. Never offended, always humble. And you know what? Season 3 of this podcast, this has been a great run. This has been, I never imagined being able to do a podcast for 2 years with two of my best friends and good people. Yeah. And it's like, it just feels good to be able to just have this avenue of communication with people.
Seriously, so. I have been smiling for an hour and a half straight. So this has been incredible. I can't believe this has been wonderful.
It's going to be great. Season 3, going to blow your goddamn socks off.
It's true. It's very true. And that's really what I want to talk about is, obviously you can join the Patreon by going to patreon.com/filmsinblackandwhite. We are going to come back in January with a season 3, be a part of the family as we continue to deliver this content for you week in and week out. I am truly blessed to have 2 friends to do this with, and that people listen and want to listen to what we have to say about movies. So we appreciate all the support, and I am so thankful and grateful for these 2, but also for everybody else who's involved. So it'll be fantastic. It's going to start raining in my house too if I talk too much about it. But also I know I've been absent a little bit because I got a little busy. But Films in Black and White on TikTok will come back in January when there's a special behind the scenes treat into my vacation to Orlando, Florida. So enjoy that shit because it's coming. If you liked Peter stumbling into a room of dead Uncle Ben's, I can promise you that in 2022 I'm going to come back with more of that. So but gentlemen,
up in the ante on ignorance, if you will.
That's up in the ante on the ignorance is probably written on my family crest somewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back finally with this trio for the last episode of season 2. Brian, give everybody our step 1 for us, please. We've been trying to do it and we just can't.
Can't do it
justice. All right. That's all right. I'm here to tell you to read a book. Books have been helping people and teaching people for hundreds of years. You're thinking you know what? I get home, I'm going to put on Netflix. No, you know what they did 500 years ago? They read a book. And that was their entertainment. So maybe kick it old school, read a book because that was their entertainment. You can make the pictures in your mind, cast whoever you want for the characters. Do you have a really big crush on somebody? Make them the lead. Who cares? It's in your head. It's a book. Who cares? Anyway, read a book.
Read a book, please. Marcus, would you care to give us step 2 in our 3-step process to success?
I wanted step 3, but that's fine.
You can have step 3. I can do step 2.
Okay, yeah, you take step 2.
Drink some water, everybody. We're so close to 2022. Go into 2022 hydrated. Drink some water, take care of yourself. Colds are going around. We're in cold season. We're in those catching a little the sniffles. The best way to kill a cold is to make sure that you stay hydrated. Drink some water.
Drink some
Marcus, Bring us home with step 3.
For the last time, this season 3, from my Black History ass to yours, I just want to let you know, you got to wash your ass. Okay. You think that I am a black champion, the king of Wakanda on this goddamn podcast without washing my ass? You wrong. You did wrong. You have to get in there. Like I got here, I'm out of my routine. I don't have my traditional soaps and stuff, but guess what? I still have soap. You got to work with what you got. Use the best you can.
True.
Get in the crack of your ass. Wash it. Don't go into the new year smelling like that. That you should be ashamed of yourself.
Santa doesn't give presents to people whose asses stink.
Wow,
He does
wow.
He does not. And Brian Roush is the only one with a baby, so I don't understand why you smell like that.
It's true.
I don't understand why.
If you smell like you have a baby, but there's no one to be seen,
you need to reevaluate. You need to reevaluate your life. And like I'm going to call Dr. Strange and make sure everybody forgets who the fuck you are because you refuse to wipe your.
I don't know if I should be offended that you think I smell like poo right now.
No, Brian, no. I'm saying that the baby smell. Babies smell like that because that's what they do. They don't have control.
True.
When grown adults come in who have full control, that's where I have a problem.
We're saying, Brian, that if you did, we would forgive you for it. Because you have a baby.
Yeah, because you have a baby.
We're not saying that you do. We're just saying you have a way out.
Yes. Unless all the kids are then 12 and then you still smell like that, then Brian, we have to have a separate conversation.
All right. Well, I appreciate your candor.
But for you watching, thank you for watching. We love you. We appreciate you. But wash your ass.
That's absolutely accurate. That does us for season 2 of Films in Black and White. We will be back in January for season 3. So in the meantime and the between time, stay safe, stay healthy, and we will catch y'all next week or next year. Sorry, next year.
Next year.
Next year. Took me to get there.